Well, now I want to turn to G-scale modeling, and that's Steve Billinger. So, Steve, welcome.
Good evening.
I hope I postponed you far enough into the show to make it comfortable for you.
Yeah, I actually got back here amazingly on time, but that was okay. That worked out fine. So anyway, well, I've been absent from the show for a bit. I missed y'all last month due to the conflict in schedule. So I kind of do a recap of what we had going on. One of the things we were doing, if y'all recall, was we had a box car that I was going to take outside and leave, set out on the railroad for some natural weathering. So it's effectively been out there now 8 weeks. When it first went out, we had a spell of rain here. We had a lot of rain, consecutive rains. In the month of October, we've had 0 rain, not one drop. But the rail car is here. Steve Sherrill's behind the camera here again tonight. So I must say one of the suggestions that was made was to take steel wool, and that turned out to be a great success. Put that up on top of it. And we're using the old iron cut nails to rust it up, and they hold the steel wool down. So that worked as well. The car has started to fade a bit, and we're getting some nice rust effects down the face of it. The only unanticipated issue I had was in about a 1 week period, all the steel wool disappeared. And I was just left with the nails. So one day I looked out the window in the morning and I saw what the problem was. For some reason, crows are taking the steel wool. Don't ask me what they do with it, but they clean me out of steel wool. So I got a fresh batch on here tonight, and the car is going to go back out again tomorrow. And we're anticipating rain for the first time tomorrow. So we should start to get some more good rust. And we're getting heavy dew at nighttime, and that seems to work just as well. So car's going back out, and we'll report in about another 4 weeks and show you how that's going. So that's the update on that one. Next item for this evening. Those of you on other scales, you're fairly fortunate when it comes to couplers. I've got some samples here of a couple of different kind of knuckle couplers, and I made a little quickie list of all the ones when you buy cars that you get. So we have LGB, Delton, Kalamazoo, Aristocraft, USA Trains, Lionel, Kadee, AccuCraft, and Bachmann. So when you get a car from them, you get their proprietary knuckle. Some of them fit together when you operate, some of them don't. So we just had an operating session this past Saturday, the last one of the year. I use all KDs like these right here on my rail cars because for operations, they're the only practical one to use. The question always becomes, how do we couple and uncouple knuckle couplers in G scale? The coupling aspect is not hard with KD. It's just like all your other scales. They push each other open and close. The next question is, how do you uncouple them? The answer there is every time you go to a Chinese or Thai restaurant, you come home with the chopsticks. I found out there's multiple choices out there in the world on chopsticks. This one is a real typical one. You get these in little twin pairs in paper. They work great. You just reshape this tip a little narrower down here at the end. So in the case of KDs, you're going to put them right in between the two knuckles. And then you just turn them counterclockwise, and it'll open your knuckles up for you. Real handy dandy. Second item I've done with these. Here's the same one. It has had this hook device added to the other end of it. On this one, this we use when you're operating. If you get any gravel or anything like that in the frogs, along the switches, at the points, you just take that little hook, put her down in there, and clean it out. Because during an operating session, everybody has one of these, they're carrying it with them. They're going to use it to uncouple their knuckles. They're going to use it to clean out any switches that they incur along the way. On other brands, this one here, for example, they use a different opening and closing system. Tiny pin on top, big one on the bottom. When it's locked shut, you're going to use this and you're going to lay it on top of the rail. I'll do it like that. And you're just going to push up. You're just going to, that action right there is going to work for you if you're using something like this. But one of the toughest ones to open is this one right here. This is Aristocrat. They have this very large protrusion, I'll call it, here on the bottom, and it has a really tough spring. To get it to open on top of the rail for G-scale, you're going to have to push hard on that thing. Likewise, when you're coupling the cars, you almost have to slam them together, get them to work. But the little tool will work all the way around. One more thing that we give operators is a piece of this right here. This is just a piece of PVC trim. And what I've done is cut them to this size out of there, first piece. Then make this shape right here with the point on the end, tapered this way as well. Anytime that you want to push cars on the track and not have them couple, these drop right into the coupler like that. If they engage another car, if you're pushing into a siding or whatever reason you want to be, this will not couple. You push it in, leave the car. When you come back, you take that back out, you're all set to go. Saves a lot of running back and forth or coupling and uncoupling all the time. I know sometimes we do what we call offsetting, where we'll just take and open them up, push one over to the side like that. The problem is if the car rolls away from you and back together, they just recouple all on their own. So this little guy here, when it's inside there, it's going to do the trick for you. It's going to be all right. So that's one little topic for tonight for G-scale folks. And in the world, if they'd ever had standardized knuckle couplers in G-scale, it would have made it a whole lot simpler. Next little project for this evening is I'm going to go back and kind of refresh everybody. I'd had a lady contacted me about doing an outdoor layout down in Frankfort, Kentucky area. And so I had started up with a design that I thought would work readily for them. And I had shown that to you all once before. So since we've had a little brief time, I'll do a catch up for those that didn't see that. But this is the outline of the potential future layout. This is a raised bed garden railroad, 32 inches up off the ground. And we're looking at a distance left to right here of 29 feet. And down this side, 25 feet, 12 feet across our bottom, 12 feet returning, and a 19-foot stretch right there. So I had priced out all the different cost items that we could use. And going back on that, it turned out the most cost effective was to get secondhand railroad ties. And I figured out that I had to leave to tell folks that based on the region that they live, you can go on Marketplace. Railroad ties, B-grade railroad ties, which are pretty good, were available quite close to them. And we have a supplier here as well, selling them for $15 each. To build the layout that we need here, we needed 52 ties. They were able to purchase in their area 52 ties for $750. However, there's an issue of delivery, and they paid $125 for loading at the location, bringing them over and unloading at their property, which is really not too bad. So at this point, the entire perimeter can be built from those ties, and we have $875 investment for our perimeter. One of the other items that you're going to need when you do this is some way to keep the ties tied together when you stack them. So I just happen to have here a handy dandy see-through layout. And I have gone ahead and there's our ties. I set it right down on top. Steve, I don't know. I guess Steve has it on camera. So you can see what we've done. We've stacked the ties up, alternated the joints. That's the strongest method. This side here only has a single run of ties going around. That's on purpose. You're going to have to get the first 8 inches of drainage stone in the bottom, the old broken bricks and blocks that I had mentioned once before. And on top of that, we're going to have some type of material, fill, hopefully anything inexpensive to get us raised up till we reach almost the top of this. By this being open, this is a place for anything, wheelbarrows, a bobcat, a tractor with a front end loader, in and out of here, placing the material. So you're not trying to work over the top all the time. It's a whole lot easier than running around trying to dump it in from these sides, because here I can come in and I can compact it as it goes in. Here, when I dump it in, it's very loose. And I'll tell you from past experience, you're either going to get a tamper, you're going to tamp it down, or you're going to wait a long time for nature to settle it down for you. So just leave this side open this stack here will be finished after you've got 90% of your material inside. Now we can dump over the sides and bring this thing up to grade. Next thing we're going to need is some way to tie these together. So before we got on here tonight, I was showing Steve Sherrill, brand new product. Most of you are familiar with rebar. Here is a new kind of rebar called pink rebar. This is not metal. This is fiberglass. This is fiberglass rebar. The nice thing about it, it does not rust. We've been using this on jobs just recently. Works great. It's much easier to cut than rebar. We cut it off with just a angle grinder. And driving it, it drives just like steel. The nice thing about this is it's 1/3 the price of steel. This 4-foot piece of rebar here is $1.89. If I bought that steel, I'd be paying about $6.50 for it. And this is available in 3/16, ½ inch, anywhere from 4-foot to 10-foot lengths. So this is what we're going to be cutting here. Lengths about this long, drilling a hole down the top of our railroad ties as we stack them, because you want to tie every other row together. Stack one on, drill through with your drill, drive one of these in. After you run that row, alternate, drive another row. And you're going to put these in through the ties about every 3 to 4 feet apart. That's what you're going to need. And in the corners. Corner locations are really vital to tying this thing together for strength. And I had a hammer when I was tapping on this stuff. You can listen. Sounds just like steel. So we're going to save a lot of money. I had factored in to our original cost that we're going to buy rebar, and our cost on the metal rebar was going to be $108 for all that we needed. Now I'm going to bring it down. It's going to cost us $40, down from $108. Very nice savings on that particular item. Next thing we're going to need is a liner on the inside here for moisture, and so our soil and stuff doesn't leak out through the cracks. I priced these up today. I'll get that on camera. I hope you can see it. But most of you are familiar with Husky trash bags. They're $29.95. You get 50 of them. Those are what you're going to use for the liner on the inside. Instead of buying a big roll of polypropylene for some ridiculous price, one box of those, 50 of them, it's going to take you about 30. So you're just going to take those out of the thing. They're double thickness. You're not going to open them up. And you're going to hang your trash bags right down over the side. Take a nail, cap nail, roofing nail, whatever, tack the top of them. So you put them over, lap them over each other about 6 inches. And each one of those is going to go about 3 feet. So 3, 4, 6, 12, etc. We go around the corner. When we've gone around, we'll put our liner that we need on the inside of here for the purposes of moisture. After that, we're going to be ready for the next phase when we get to the point where we're going to put stone, brick, block, big gravels, whatever it is in the bottom. But we need to have the plastic liner go in there first. So at that point, we will have built, minus the dirt or fill, we have that up to where we are ready to talk about what's going to be the track plan, what's going to be the scenic aspects of our G-scale layout. And that, I think I'll cover in a different program. So if I go back to our costs, we have spent $750 on our railroad ties, $125 to have those delivered, and $30 for our plastic trash bags, and $40 for our pink bar, our rebar that goes in there. That's going to have us to the point where, at that point, we have spent just shy of $1,000 for our complete layout. And I've told you once before, if you want to get cheap dirt free, you call up swimming pool companies, you ask them if they're digging pools anywhere in your area, you'll gladly help them dispose of the fill material that's coming out, because that's an excellent way to get material generally close to your home. You're not paying trucking expenses, and the material comes out, it's just fine. You don't need any kind of super duper topsoil or things of that nature for what we're doing at this point, because we're not talking about the vegetation aspect that's going to go on top of here eventually. So I'll be glad to take questions on that. I'm trying to be brief tonight, and Steve Sherrill wants to hop out of here so he can go home. His presentation.
Steve, when you put the drain holes in the ties, At what
On the
point?
sidewalls,
Yeah,
you don't put any.
you don't put any.
No, any sidewall drainage. We're taking all our drainage down into that 8-inch layer on the bottom. And that's where we're letting the water come out under that first, I guess you say at the first 8, that would be correct, Steve, at 8 inches. Within that first 8 inches, we're going to have weep holes down there at the very bottom. We want that plastic to come down and stop maybe 3 to 4 inches from the bottom so that that area down there is where all our water is directed. Water's not too much of a problem in building these layouts. I've had maybe 6 or 7 layouts I've built for people in our off times. The worst thing that can happen is you get certain clays in certain areas that are non-permeable. And it's just like putting a pottery jar down there. When that clay dries out, it just holds water, period. So you have to be careful, maybe with that exception of what type of soils you're putting inside. But if you throw it in randomly, the clay is just a small component of the fill that you're putting in.
Hey, Steve, it's Greg.
Yeah, Greg.
The corner that you keep low in order to bring the Bobcat in or whatever you need to.
Yeah.
You leave that low for some type of canyon that you could put a trestle over or something, or would that be too dangerous?
I was trying to keep this relatively simple. Greg's familiar with my own railroad, and my exterior perimeter goes up and down, which you would call the fascia. I have multiple heights. It varies by 18 inches over the entire layout. So what you're saying, Greg, would be correct. You would hold it down if you wanted to do raised where the trestle would be exposed and so forth above the grade. That's exactly how you would do it, by leaving that corner low.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you might end up with too much natural erosion or something.
I don't have problems with that, really.
Okay.
I have some pretty good slopes on my railroad, and yeah, a massive downpour or something at that point, you're going to have to do some repairs, but not as a rule. It's not too much of an issue.
Cool.
It's real. This is as close to real railroading as you can get when you go outdoors. So.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, thank you so very much. Great presentation. Look forward to next time when we'll start seeing some fill in there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We got to go out and start gathering up again.
Thanks again. And tell Steve he can head home now.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Goodbye.